Good morning, everyone. Very warm welcome to you. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the founder of E2E. I'd like to thank you all for joining me and we have an extraordinary panel this morning. So I'd like to thank you. I know it's an early start. Normally, we'd run this event due to the courtesy of Lord Bilimoria, who opens up the House of Lords for us at the House of Lords, but we have a Lord with us, so it is our virtual House of Lords reception. We normally run this quarterly, and as many of you will know, that Lord Bilimoria was he's a founding board director of E2E, and we've been running this now, I think, Lord Bilimoria, probably for about 6 years now, and I think it's obviously a difficult time, and it's a shame that we can't be at the House of Lords, but there are positives. It's the biggest ever audience that we've had for a House of Lords reception. We're normally restricted to 50 people in the room that we usually book. Today we have around 400 people joining us, and we can do it from the comfort of our own homes. So I think there's time saving and there's benefit from doing that. I'm also delighted that for the first time we are partnering with the Department of International Trade. Today we're partnering with the Global Entrepreneur Program. Alpesh Patel is here. He's a fellow deal maker with me on the Global Entrepreneur Program. And I'm going to formally introduce Lord Bilimoria, Rita Clifton CBE, and Alpesh in a minute. But I'd just like to kick off by saying thank you to you. I think it's through the camaraderie, through the collaboration, through our collective and concerted effort that we as SMEs, we're the engine of the UK economy, and we will bring back the economy by this collected effort. So I think this is something I always say, it's about bringing people together when business happens. So thank you very much for joining us. I hope you can all hear me. Now, just in terms of the format, I will just spend a few minutes talking about E2E. I will also introduce the speakers, and then after that, I'm going to hand over to Lord Bilimoria, who's going to officially welcome us to this reception. Alpesh will kindly say a few words about the Global Entrepreneur Program and the Department of International Trade and some of the great work that the government is doing. And then we ask our keynote speaker and our guest of honour, Rita Clifton, to talk. She is going to be focusing on how to build a global brand from the UK during this time of COVID. And for those of you that have come across her, she's an exceptional woman known as the doyenne of branding for the UK. So a huge privilege to have such an esteemed panel with us. During the Q&A, in terms of what I'd suggest we do, there's a lot of people. If you wouldn't mind, if you see at the bottom of your Zoom, there's a raise of hands. If you raise your hand, what we will try and keep your questions short, quickly introduce your name and your company, and then we'll try and get through as many questions as we can. We've got about 30 minutes for a Q&A, and then Lord Bilimoria has kindly offered to do a closing at the very end towards 10:30. So as a quick background on E2E, I hope many of you will know us, and we've got a lot of members, but we also have quite a few new members. My focuses are making E2E the community for the UK and then internationally, where entrepreneurs can collaborate, connect, and have an ecosystem of all the services that you need. So we don't provide a lot of the services ourselves. We are a connector. So we connect entrepreneurs, to investors, to mentors, to non-execs, and also to corporate companies. Some of you will know that soon we will be launching our own community portal. I like to call this the match.com for business, because we're all about building relationships, and it's the quickest and easiest way of describing it. So that will have a number of features. It's launching quite hopefully later on this year. My team during COVID have been working exceptionally hard to get it ready. So please watch out for that. Now, we have 23,000 members. They contribute 213 billion to the UK economy. They employ 1.15 million people. And we're hoping that our members will come onto the community portal. Our membership currently is for free. People keep asking me, why is it for free? When we launch our Match.com for business, we will introduce a new paid membership, which gives you a lot more than what we have today, and that will be at £25 a month. we've worked out that for those people that use the services on E2E Connect on our portal, it's around about £24,000 worth of value. So I look forward to sharing that with you in time to come. So at the moment, membership stays complimentary, and we are opting anyone in who's not a member, but you need to be a founder of a scaling business to be a member of E2E. If you take a minute to look at our website, the membership application form is there, and also you will see that we have roughly 1 to 2 events virtually a week in September. It looks like we will continue with virtual events in October, and we'll see how the world evolves, and then see whether we can go back to running physical events in later October or November time. So hopefully that's given you a quick feel of E2E, and thank you for taking the time to join us. Now I'm delighted to introduce Lord Bilimoria. I think he doesn't need a huge introduction. Lord Bilimoria CBE, DL. He's the co-founder, as many of you will know, of Cobra Beer. He's the Chancellor of Birmingham University, and as I mentioned earlier, he's founding board director of E2E. In 1989, at the age of 27, when he had £20,000 in debt, Lord Bilimoria launched Cobra Beer. By 2014, Cobra had a market share of over 98% of all the licensed Indian restaurants within the United Kingdom. Curran was appointed Lord Bilimoria of Chelsea, making him the first ever Zoroastrian to sit in the House of Lords. In 2008, he was awarded the Pravasi Bharatiya Samman by the President of India. As many of you know, he's an honorary fellow of Sydney Sussex College at Cambridge. He's a member of the advisory board of Judge Business School at Cambridge. He's a qualified chartered accountant, and he's a barrister by training, an accountant by training, and he has a law degree from Cambridge University. Now, by saying all those things, I've only just skimmed 1/10 of his bio. So Lord Bilimoria, thank you very much for joining us this morning, and I'll hand over to you.
Shalini, thank you very much, and welcome to all of you. Every event that I've been privileged to host for E2E and for Shalini and this wonderful organization at the House of Lords over the past years is always packed out. I mean, it's just wonderful. We have standing room only. And today, look at the numbers that we've been able to accommodate because of the new world that we're living in. So welcome to all of you to this virtual meeting. I look forward to hosting you back in the House of Lords soon. In fact, I'm going there straight after this to speak in a question about the COVID crisis in Parliament. There are 30 of us allowed maximum on the floor of the House at the moment. Everyone else operates remotely, so it's a hybrid way of working at the moment. Now, this particular event is a dream event for me, because E2E is always a dream, because as an entrepreneur, to have an entrepreneurs organization for entrepreneurs is fantastic. But to have today, talking about brands, and with Rita, who I've had the privilege to know over the years, we've been on the association members, like trustees of BUPA for many years together, amongst other connections that we've had going back many years. I've always admired what she does, and we're going to learn a lot from Rita today. I know that for sure. And Alpesh, my dear friend, who I've known for many, many years, who's championing entrepreneurship for Britain around the world. And it's the global entrepreneur aspect, which is tremendous. And this is something that we must not take for granted. Because if you go back, Shalini said, when I started Cobra Beer 30 years ago, in the early 80s, when I came as a student from India, this country was not renowned for entrepreneurship. In fact, entrepreneurship was looked down upon. Today, we are one of the most entrepreneurial countries in the world. And that comes to the fore in a crisis. I always say the true test of leadership is not in the good times. The true test of leadership is in times of adversity. We cannot get a more adverse environment than we've had over the last 5 or 6 months. And it's just remarkable how the entrepreneurial spirit has come through at every stage. And I will make some remarks at the end, but to me, what I've seen has not worked in this crisis is top-down leadership of government trying to do things on its own. It hasn't worked. When you look at the critical care capacity at hospitals, we were terrified with those images from Italy, if you remember, in March, of awful hospitals with patients in corridors, critical bed capacity just not there. And we said, we can't get there. The Chinese, meanwhile, were building, you could see that in days, a huge hospital from scratch. We said, oh, only the Chinese can do that. Well, when we got our act together, it was the NHS working with the Excel Centre, private sector, working with the armed forces, including the Gurkhas, working with the local university, the University of East London, in East London at the Excel Centre, setting up a 4,000 critical bed care hospital from scratch in 9 days. Now that happened because of working in collaboration and partnership. And then we've replicated that around the country. So we now have these Nightingale hospitals there. So if there is a second wave, I hope there isn't, but if there is, we are there ready to cope with it when it comes to care capacity for beds, which we didn't have in March. And we did that very quickly. So when it came to testing, the testing, when it was done on its own, Germany was testing 100,000 tests a day. There were 100,000 tests a day in March. In April, we were barely doing 10,000 tests a day. Today, we've ramped that up because it's collaborative. It's not just Public Health England, it's National Health, it's universities, it's laboratories, it's the private sector, all working together. And just this morning, we had the wonderful news. I've been one of the people pushing for mass testing to be available, particularly for business, at airports, at schools, at universities, at hospitals, at care homes. And now we have affordable mass testing in America that's just been released last week, $5, a saliva test on a strip of paper with a result in 20 minutes for $5 from Abbott Laboratories. And they're producing 50 million of them right now. And we're testing those here in the UK. Matt Hancock has said we're putting £500 million behind that. So look at the difference between where we were in March and where we are now, where if we can have affordable £1 or £2 a test at home, instant testing for £2, £3 a test, wow, we could be on top of this virus and we could get on with work and have the country firing on all cylinders. So when it comes to brands, I'm very, very clear. We have a fantastic brand as a country, the United Kingdom. Never, ever take it for granted that 1% of the world's population, and yet we are so fantastic in just about every area, including in entrepreneurship and including in brands. And if I, just before handing over, for me, the brand is such an important thing. We had the government showing innovation on entrepreneurship with the Eat Out to Help Out scheme last August. What a great idea. What a clever idea to get people to go out, to go to restaurants, to support the restaurant industry. I mean, I supply through Cobra Beer 7,000 restaurants. They were shut, basically, from March until July. And they started to open in July. And this scheme gave the confidence to consumers to go out to restaurants where you got up to £10 off, 50% discount. And it ran on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays, normally quiet nights. In August, normally a very quiet month. And what happened? 80 million people use that scheme. And we've all seen it. Restaurants full, sometimes at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. One restaurant did 500 covers in a day, which they'd never have done in their history, at a time of adversity. So when you come up with something innovative, it's amazing. And with Cobra Beer now, we've extended that scheme. And this is where you can run with it as an entrepreneur, run with it as a brand. So for September, we've got our own Cobra Beer Eat Out to Help Out scheme, which we've extended through our restaurants, and already hundreds of them are signed up to it. So that's the power of brands. And when I did my joint venture with Molson Coors, one of the largest brewers in the world, they said one of the reasons that we're doing this joint venture with you is that you have an extraordinary brand. And we have 6 criteria for what is an extraordinary brand. So one, an extraordinary brand is built on an undeniable brand truth. And you can apply this to a country, to a beer brand, to a university, to E2E, to anything. What is the undeniable brand truth of your brand? In our case at Cobra, it's that smooth, extra smooth taste that enables it to go with all food. Next thing is extraordinary brands will never compromise on their principles and will never take any shortcuts, no corners. It's always playing down the line with a straight bat. Third thing, an extraordinary brand has an instantly recognizable and iconic look. You should be able to shut your eyes and be able to see that brand and visualize it. The fourth thing is an extraordinary brand delivers a relevant and consistent experience. So there's no point being able to do something once. Can you, in our case, produce hundreds of millions of pints and bottles of beer day after day after day that all taste as good as the next one and the last one is as good as, and that consistency is a real challenge. Fifth, and that, to me, this is the most important one, can an extraordinary brand build loyal brand champions? Will people follow you, seek you out, be disappointed if you're not available if you're a consumer brand, to have loyal brand champions? And finally, extraordinary brands deliver extraordinary profits. There's no point doing all this unless you deliver the results. So there we are. That's an extraordinary brand, and I look forward to an extraordinary session. Charlene, back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lord Bilimoria. That was an extraordinary welcome. So thank you for that. I'm now going to introduce my friend Alpesh Patel. He's a fellow deal maker for the UK government. He's part of the Global Entrepreneur Programme and one of the most senior, I think one of the first deal makers on the programme. He's been covering much of the world, but specifically focusing on Asia and the Middle East for over a decade. Tell me he looks too young, right, to be doing it for over a decade. As the senior and longest serving member of a 15 to 20 strong team, he and the team have delivered over $1 billion of investment into the UK since 2005. He was previously appointed by the Prime Minister to advise on policies for closer ties between the UK and India, and he began his career as a barrister. Alpesh, as hopefully you've seen him on BBC News, he makes a lot of appearances on Bloomberg, CNBC, Newsnight, CNN, Sky News, Channel 4, US and UK radio, so the list goes on. I'm mentioning just a few. He's written over 200 columns. Now, I didn't know this about you, Alpesh, so 200 columns for the Financial Times, and launched his own private equity fund. He's also a former visiting fellow in business and advisory at Oxford University, and is a council member of the Chatham House. Again, just touching on some of his highlights, an exceptional entrepreneur. Nice to have you here, and thank you for joining us, and we're hoping that Derek will get better soon, but we're really delighted that you could join us, Alpesh. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shalini. It's been a pleasure working with you on the Global Entrepreneur Programme as well. And thank you, Karan. I don't think I should mention how many decades we've known each other now. We both look far too young, I'm sure, to give that number away. Thank you for all you've done with entrepreneurship. I will explain what we're doing. I was looking at the chat whilst Karen was talking, and people were saying where they're from, and it's amazing. You've done a great job, E2E and Shalini, because they're from around the world. There's people from South Africa, there's people from Canada, there's people from all over the UK, and that, in a way, is what the Global Entrepreneur Programme and the UK is about. What we do, we're a programme within the Department for International Trade, which has as deal makers people who are continuing to run their own businesses, people such as me, people such as Shalini, and our job is to look for the most outstanding technology entrepreneurs from around the world at the scale-up stage before they've become huge. So it's sort of, think of Karan at the age of 27, before they become huge, and we want more talented people like him coming to this country, and you can see why. Look at what happens when you build a country full of entrepreneurs. And what we want those companies to do is have their global headquarters here and be technologies which solve the world's biggest problems. And that comes back to the UK and branding the UK. The UK, not just in terms of the present government's policy, but policies of all governments of all colours have sought to help solve the world's biggest problems, even more so now through technology and entrepreneurship. And we're looking for those companies. And I'll give you some examples of the companies we've brought here and how we've raised those $1 billion+ in investment by bringing them here. Why does the government do this? Well, the government feels that whilst we've got an amazing group of entrepreneurs in the UK, which we continue to help, we want to have even more British companies created in the UK from around the world. When you look at Apple being worth more than the entirety of the FTSE 100, we want Apple's their seeds sowed today in the UK, so that in 40 years we'll have a bunch of those companies here as well, and there'll be British companies, just as Karan came from India and his company is British, benefiting the British economy, and then we help those companies export. What if you're already a British company? Well, we'll show you some of the resources that we have for British companies, because all the companies that we bring from abroad become British. They're incorporated here, their global headquarters have to be here, the entrepreneurs have to relocate here, the intellectual property has to be here. And that's really important, because study after study shows that the GDP of a country is directly proportionate to the intellectual property it owns or creates. And Karen, being from the university sector, will know just how incredibly important that sector is to wealth creation, not just rooted in academia. And that's also what this program is about. It's about joining up all these different sectors, the Foreign Office, the Department for International Trade, the Education Department, as well as our International Trade Department. So let me give you some examples of the kinds of companies and the technologies and the problems we've sought to solve by making these companies, the best of the world, come to the United Kingdom for our ease of doing business, our ability to help them export, not just the fact that we're the fourth, fifth largest economy in the world with that special relationship with two of the largest trading zones in the world, the United States and the EU, of course. But of course, as a country, as an exporter, the United Kingdom has always punched well above its weight, whether it's something in the blood or the water of the people on these wonderful islands, which is why people want to come here from around the world. So I'll give you some examples of the kinds of companies. We brought Air for Life here. They used a NASA-based technology to make air purifiers, masks, electronic masks. It was the same technology used on the space shuttle. They bought it, they acquired the technology, they brought it here, they've started manufacturing in the UK. They are winning millions of pounds worth of contracts during COVID, even before COVID, helping purify air, for instance, and helping counter pollution and working in hospitals. So they've got contracts in Italy, in India. That's a British company. We have Worldwide Generation, who are using blockchain to track where money goes. If money going from the UN is going in aid to other parts of the world, or from the UK, they're using blockchain technology to track and trace where it's going and is it doing what it's supposed to do, so making that whole sector more efficient. British company, originally founders out of Australia and Sri Lanka. We have Credit Enable, the SME sector, and Karen will be able to relate to this very much. How often do we see SMEs not being able to get the finance they need because the computer says no, the banks may be too risk averse, more so than they should be. They don't back the phenomenal entrepreneurs because they don't do it the old way of actually meeting people. Well, Credit Enable uses artificial intelligence and algorithms to help banks release more of that capital by finding the right risk match for them. They came from India, located over here, won contracts over here, and then are now exporting back to India, a bit like your story, Karen, with Cobra, bring it over here and then exporting it back to the Indians. I'll give you one more example. Finboot, again, another blockchain company, which helps make sure that the clothes that you're wearing can be tracked, that the safety and the supply chain is there. It's not being used by child labor to manufacture those things. There's many, many more deals I could discuss. What we've done is make sure through our government websites, and we'll make sure at the end, Shalini and I, that you get access to those, that every accelerator indicator, every grant making body, every loan making body, every incubator, every VC, we've listed those, what sectors they're involved in, the size of financial help they give, the kinds of help they give entrepreneurs to grow. British companies like all of you here, all those of you thinking of becoming British companies, and those who aren't British, we want to hear from you. We're looking at the UK for our headquarters, but we'll make sure those resources are all made available to you to make your journey that much easier to find not just the funding, but as entrepreneurs, you want to help with those deals. How do you get the introductions to the right people to close those deals? And that's part of what we do. So if I were to wrap it up in terms of this talk, I'd say we're trying to brand the UK even more so as entrepreneurial and as an innovative economy, forward-looking, growing, technology-rich, IP-rich, and a wealth creator trying to solve some of the world's biggest problems. And that is what future Britain, if not present Britain already, but future Britain certainly looks like, and we want more of that.
Thank you very much. Alpesh, thank you very much. So I'm just going to reiterate what Alpesh has said there. If you're not based in the UK and you'd like to talk to either Alpesh or myself about coming here, we'd welcome that. It's quite interesting. One of the things that E2E is focused on is that the UK comes third in the world in supporting startups. We want to get to first position. We are 13th in the world at supporting scale-ups, and we're on a mission. Lord Bilimoria really advocates for this, that we need to increase the number of scale-ups in the UK and actually fast-track that journey to become sort of first or in the top 5 globally. So this is part of the reason why building a global brand from the UK is critical. And I think we have now, it's my huge pleasure to introduce my friend and exceptional lady, Rita Clifton CBE. So let me share with you some highlights on her. She's the co-founder of BrandCap. Rita also, there's a common theme here, Cambridge University, Oxford University. She also graduated from Cambridge University. She started her career in advertising, and she very quickly became Vice President and Strategy Director at Saatchi & Saatchi in its most successful period. She was the London CEO of a business called Interbrand. You'll hopefully all know it's a global consultancy. And then she later became the chairman for a 10-year period of Interbrand. She now has a portfolio of chairing and non-exec positions, and they include a huge number of businesses. Karen mentioned Bupa. She's also on the board of Nationwide Building Society. She's on the board of ASOS and Essential PLC. She was also on the board of Dixon's Retail PLC and Populous, which is the opinion pollster and research company. In 2013, she became the chair of the global consultancy BrandCap, which she also founded. It's been sold now, I understand, to the management group. So Rita, congratulations for your exit on that as well. She has been recently made a visiting fellow of Saïd Business School. Remember I said Oxford and Cambridge? She's been made a fellow there. She's a regular commentator on major TV, news and social channels, and she is a best-selling author. She has just launched her new best-selling book, which is called Love Your Imposter. I'm hoping you'll share a little bit about that. It's such an amazing title. So Rita, thank you for that. She's got a huge number of also, in addition, I don't know where she makes the time, pro bono board roles, which include WWF UK, the UK's Sustainable Development Commission, and now the Green Alliance, which is the leading think tank for environment. In 2014, she was awarded a CBE, Commander of the British Empire, for her services to the creative industries. And I'm not fibbing when I say this is just touching. I've just extracted highlights from her biography, as I did for Lord Bilimoria and Alpesh. So Rita, thank you. We are excited to have you, and thank you for speaking this morning and making the time.
Oh gosh, thank you very much, Shalini. I'm blushing quite a lot here, actually, and it's interesting you mentioned my book, for which thank you very much, available in all great bookshops as from next week. But you mentioned that it's called Love Your Imposter, and after that introduction, as you can imagine, I feel like one great big imposter. In fact, actually, it reminds me, I was watching someone recently who was being introduced, the great big build-up. And the guy came on stage and said, well, after that introduction, I can't wait to hear myself speak. And I think that's a bit how I'm feeling at the moment. But nevertheless, thank you very much for inviting me. I have to say that my home office here isn't quite the same as the House of Lords. I was thinking about getting a sort of fake backdrop, do you know what I mean? But it looks a bit spooky, I find, when people have got that. But anyway, again, thank you very much for having me, and I hope we'll have a good discussion later on about what people are doing and what they'd like to do, etc. But just as an opening gambit, I mean, I don't know about you or indeed anybody else on this call, but I find that there's only a certain number of times you can listen to the word unprecedented and troubled times and uncertain times before you just want to reach for the delete button. You know, there's only a certain amount of times I think the human spirit can take that kind of feel and that kind of and so on. And clearly we are in unprecedented times. I'm just going to use that word once or twice more and put money in the swear box. I think it's sort of become my swear box equivalent at the moment. But I'm just going to use it a couple more times because, I mean, clearly this is a time of extraordinary and unprecedented problems for business and the world. But what I hope I might do over the next sort of 15 minutes or so is actually to think about how it's also a time of unprecedented opportunities for businesses, and particularly ambitious and entrepreneurial businesses, and businesses that have the kind of equity and platform that we do have when we really take it up with the UK as our backdrop and as the provenance of some of our businesses. So an unprecedented opportunity to build a global brand for the UK in this I'm going to say post-COVID world. I mean, honestly, again, if I see emails with that in the subject at the moment, the delete button, I'm afraid, just sort of gets pressed pretty quickly. So what I might talk about to begin with is what I've noticed and found is both different and also what's the same about our current situation. And I was going to talk a little bit about some of the world's most successful companies and brands and what it is that they've been doing. What are the principles that they've been following in good times and bad to make sure they are in the best possible position. I'm then going to talk a little bit about what we've got going for us as Brand UK, and also, frankly, what we can sometimes do to sabotage ourselves, that we do all need to look out for. And finally, I'm going to talk a bit about what kinds of leaders I think we all need to be to make the very most of what's happening and also in the future in a very broad way, both in business terms and also as a broader contribution to society. And I say that because in so many ways, you know, business has never been less respected, you know, more criticised. There is a bit of a problem with brand business, and actually some of that problem does arise from the way we can look at business sometimes in the UK. And I think that there are certain things that we as business leaders need to do, and the kind of tone and style that we need to capture that I think could make people friendlier to business, because frankly, it's a bit depressing when governments can get more votes sometimes from giving business a good kicking as opposed to encouraging businesses, because, you know, we all need to keep on saying if we don't have successful business of all types, shapes and sizes that generate sustainable value and wealth, we are not going to have the money to pay for schools and hospitals and so on. And I think that entrepreneurial businesses, small businesses, actually have a much better opportunity, if you like, a great opportunity to get that sort of message across, because there aren't the same sorts of blocks and obstacles that sometimes big business can be tarred with. So clearly what's different about the current situation, and there's a backdrop for building brands. I mean, you know, the scale of the current crisis, the speed at which things have changed and also continue to change, and also the attack on particular sectors, how particular sectors have been affected, which have been sectors that the UK have been particularly good at. And I'm thinking about, you know, services and hospitality, creative industries and so on. I mean, you know, there have been some real challenges in those sectors. And I guess depending on which hyperbole you prefer, I mean, you know, we have seen 3 to 5 years of, you know, customer trends, of digital trends happening in 10 weeks. I mean, if you prefer a bit more hyperbole, you can talk about, you know, we had 10 years of trends happening in 10 weeks. But what's very, very clear is that we have seen an extraordinary acceleration of take-up of digital channels, e-commerce and so on. And, you know, certainly the door has swung open and it's going to be difficult to put it back even if we want to. And in so many ways, we don't want to do that because the UK is fantastically good at the internet economy. I mean, so many businesses, and we've already talked about this, have been founded here and are growing here and so on. And just listening to the European CEO of Google, who talks about what an extraordinary opportunity the UK has got if it has the confidence that actually could be justified. And again, more of our GDP in the UK goes to the internet economy than any other comparable nation. So just thinking about those trends, I mean, you know, an example I think we'd all point to is, I mean, what's been happening with Zoom? Who knew? I mean, at the end of 2019, Zoom had about 10 million users. And as at the end of April, they had 300 million and a market valuation of about $67 billion. I mean, you know, what's really interesting about Zoom is clearly, you know, they had a lot of great qualities, you know, simplicity and clarity, ease of use, a great name, very distinctive name, and so on. But I think what's really interesting is that time will tell when we're talking about, you know, growing brands and developing brands. Is Zoom going to be a BlackBerry and a Nokia, or is it going to be an Apple and a Google? I think it's a really, really interesting discussion, because Zoom will be prey to all the other pressures that so many technology-based businesses can suffer from, which is, you know, products go obsolete. Technology, you know, gets made redundant, and unless you're building a brand, a strong brand, wrapping yourselves around your customers, around what you're doing as a product, unless you're being ambitious to push it forward and innovate more products and services, then you are in danger again of becoming the BlackBerry or the Nokia sector, because, you know, as we know, for long-term sustained success, you need to be building a long-term brand, and the key principles of that are exactly the same. That is what is the same. If so many of these trends and backdrops are what's different, and the scale and the speed and the challenge of some you know, nations becoming more isolated and people turning their back on some globalization advantages, there are a lot of real clear similarities and key principles that still hold good here. And I hope that I'm preaching to the converted and the audience that are listening about the importance of building a brand. And I think that, you know, more and more these days, I find people acknowledging how important they find the brand thing, but they're not necessarily making the very most of that brand thing, because they often tend to look at brand as somehow the marketing department or big advertising budgets, and that may not be relevant to them. Of course, the only way to build a great brand, particularly in this digital world we're living in, is to make sure that everything you do is geared towards the long-term growth and success of that brand. So to use the brand, to use branding as the organizing idea behind your enterprise. And what that means is everything you do, everything you make, everything you're operating, the way you're training and developing and recruiting your people, these all need to be done in a distinctive way. So every element of your brand, whether or not you've got any budget to spend on marketing and communication, because behavior is communication. Every one of your people is going to be an ambassador for your business, and they need to love what they do. They need to be clear about what they do, and particularly in this digital age. And I think what's interesting now is that because everything is transparent in any business, in a digital age, everything you do on the inside gets to the outside. Now that makes big, lazy, fat businesses very sweaty and very nervous. It's also a great opportunity for small entrepreneurial businesses who have people who love what they do, and also have customers who love them, because customers who love what you do tell other customers that you're doing a great job, and that is extremely cheap marketing. And frankly, in the old days of, you know, the marketing funnel, you spent a lot of money to get people aware of your brand. You hope that they'd buy it. If they buy it, you know, they'd repeat purchase, and that will create your model. Nowadays, it's like a bomb going off. Getting to customers is sometimes like an obstacle course. You know, people will talk to other people, consumers believe other consumers. You can be hijacked at any stage in the research and the purchase cycle for your business. And that goes for any consumer business, any B2B business, you know, whatever it is, whatever shape, size and sector. Because, so if you are not looking after your people, if they're not clear about what you're doing and why they love what they do, and why your customers love what they're buying from you and recommending to other customers, you are not making the most of what you're doing, and you're not making the most of your agility. And again, the kind of love that smaller entrepreneurial businesses can really enjoy versus competitors. And on the brand front, you know, what I would say is any enterprise that's trying to build added value that's beyond day-to-day process and cost, the only way to do that, the only way to build an enterprise that's going to have long-term value for your colleagues or your family or whoever you want to pass the business on to, is to build a brand. And if ever you doubt this, you know, dear Warren Buffett, who I think has just celebrated a big birthday, I can't remember which one it was, but you know, he hasn't been too bad in his success. And when he was asked about his secrets for investing, you know, which companies did he choose to invest in? And people expected him to talk about finance and so on. But he said in number 3, a strong balance sheet. In number 2, a strong management team. And number 1, a strong brand, because he wants more returns for less risk. And that's what you get from building a strong brand. And when people say to me, you know, brands are important, yes, they're good assets, but our most important assets are our people. Well, you know, people have a habit of leaving, or, you know, sadly, you know, kicking the bucket, you know, whatever. Products and services become obsolete and buildings fall down. The thing that lives on, if you look after it, is the brand or the brands. So using it as an organizing idea for everything you do to create value for everything you do without having to spend lots of money on external marketing if you don't have it, and particularly during a recession. If you do have it, by the way, if you do have cash in the bank and money to spend, you know, a century of recessions will tell you that if you invest through a recession, you will get a disproportionate gain afterwards. If you go dark and cut all of your money during recession, then if your competitors are spending, they will steal a march on you. And if you just look at, you know, businesses like Kellogg's, I mean, you know, right back in the 1920s, Kellogg spent through a recession and their main competitor didn't. And their main competitor post died, and Kellogg's, of course, is still in the most extraordinary position now. So that was one of the very first examples. So if you keep on and can keep on investing, that's great. If you can't, everything you do does count, and you need to make sure that you're getting that out there, creating content around what you do, what your people love, and also around your customers too. There are many, many good examples of that. So thinking about lessons from some of the world's leading brands, I mean, there are 3 principles. These are also things that are the same. And even though the execution is different and the application is different, these are the same principles. And those are clarity of what you stand for, how that's different and special versus your competitors. And of course, having a purpose-based business, that's not a sort of, you know, only ethical and, you know, nicey nice. That's a purpose-based business. You know, purpose-led companies outperform businesses that don't. And that's because they get people who are motivated. They can also get their customers involved, you know, more authentically in what they're doing and so on. So clarity of what you stand for is crucially important. And if you don't have that clarity, anything else will be either academic or less effective. And if you think about some of the great examples of successful businesses that have extraordinary clarity, I'll come on to Apple and Google and Amazon and so on in just a moment, and also some British-based examples of global businesses. But clarity expressed in a really crisp way, can you do that with your business, is a real challenge, because doing the simple thing is sometimes more difficult than doing pages and pages of words and complicated plans. The second principle is about coherence. How does that clarity show up through everything you do? Because every touch really counts, and particularly when money is tight. You know, have you got the right people? Are you training them the right way? Do they love what they do? And so on. And don't pretend you're a smiley customer service organization on the outside if you're an axe murdering culture on the inside, because it doesn't work. You've got to make sure that that authenticity runs through your business. And the third principle is about leadership. And that is about who runs the organization and how you, maybe as proprietors or indeed advising the heads of your businesses, you need to make sure you are epitomizing, you know, the best values of your organization. And when I say that, I've got so many examples of businesses I worked with where this, you know, it might have been a business about exciting technology, but the CEO was almost like a professional CEO as opposed to someone who loved that technology and what they were doing. And of course, there was a bit of dissonance there, because if the CEO doesn't look as though they love what they do and that they believe in what they do, they are not going to be epitomizing the best values of that organization. So leadership really matters, and how you talk to people, what you get out there, the content you're producing, and so on. But also, leadership is about restlessness, it's about innovation, it's about setting the agenda in your markets, whether or not you are the big scale player or whether or not you are the contender or the challenger or whatever. You've got to keep on making sure you are refreshing and reinventing who you are, what you're doing. And we've had to see a lot of that in this in this COVID period, businesses who have not been able to get people into their shops, they've had to innovate and move on in taking their products to people. Personal services, when you haven't been able to go to the hairdresser, let's not go there, but when you haven't been able to go to the hairdresser, you have had to wanted to tune in to the personal service, or the person who has been giving you that personal service, have emergency kits, show online videos. Businesses have had to adapt and change to the environment, and those that have adapted are now in a position where they can rebuild in a slightly more normal time. So the great successes, Apple, Apple is fascinating, and it's the most overused case study in the universe, but there's a reason for that. They do the clarity, coherence, and leadership principles like no one else. Man shall not be subordinate to machine. They're about humanizing technology. They show that up through everything they do. The products that are used by human beings and loved by human beings, the people in their stores who are human in how they describe things and how they help people. Today at Apple, which is in a more normal world, trying to be a new town square for showing people about liberal arts and technology and so on. And what's interesting, of course, is Apple, right at the heart of one of the last downturns in 2001, that's when the iPod appeared. That's really when Apple got going and really stole a march for many years on its competitors. And what's interesting, of course, is Microsoft was founded in a recession, the oil crisis in the 1970s. And Microsoft, on those principles, they've gone back to those principles. Now they've had a new CEO since 2014, when for some time they were sort of about an exploding product-based business, more sales and tech-based as opposed to brand-based. And that's why Microsoft have quadrupled their share price over the last few years, because they remembered they're a brand. They are a brand, and they've got a critical mass now, and they've used that brand to develop, cloud-based services, which is an incredibly profitable thing for them, as opposed to lots and lots of bits, which, of course, they had a problem with before. Google and extraordinary clarity, you can see how that shows up through, organizing the world's information. That's how they present it, and that's how it works right across their culture. And Amazon is the world's most customer-centric company. Amazon are eating the world, as we know, but the reason is they are utterly clear about what their brand is about, and they do that remorselessly through everything that they do. Now, they will clearly have to watch it in terms of leadership and engagement, and support from governments and communities, because not everything is perfect in that business. But some homegrown examples. I was on the board of ASOS for 6 years, and that is the most phenomenal case of a British-based business that had a really clear vision, and the vision, to be the online destination for fashion-loving 20-somethings. And the great thing about that is it shows up through everything they do. They blend retail and editorial. The people on the inside reflect rather some of the customers on the outside, so there's a lot of authenticity. It really is the most extraordinary and dynamic business, and understanding that target and being focused on that target and doing it brilliantly and having the sort of choice and making the online experience extraordinary. They have managed to take that brand and that model out to just about every country on earth. And for many years, they were just exporting from that warehouse in Barnsley. And now, of course, there is a warehouse in the EU, and there's a warehouse in the States. But, it is a British born and bred business, of which I think we could and should be exceptionally proud. And of course, we are talking about 80 million active customers. This is the most extraordinary business. The other business that actually I had some involvement with was Ocado. Ocado, again, this was a business that was born just around the time of the dot-com, dot-bomb era. Now, why was it that Ocado managed to succeed when so many other online businesses, digital businesses, went down the pan? they were originally called LM Solutions, which maybe isn't quite the sort of snappy name that they ended up with, nor indeed actually that is often the basis of an exciting brand. So, and what's interesting about Ocado is that clarity, that every touch counts. And they made that show up through everything they did, not only how they presented their products and the way in which they put the different products in different bags according to where they should go in the cupboard or the freezer or whatever, but those very distinctive lorries that acted like their TV commercials. You know, they went round in those very distinctive lorries, and the person who arrived to deliver your stuff, this wasn't just any lorry driver, this was someone you wouldn't mind having in your kitchen delivering your stuff. Every touch counted all along the way, and that spread extraordinarily through word of mouth. So a great base business. And actually, I think just on a more light-hearted note, Joe Wicks, I think, has been one of the key brand winners of this extraordinary period, where he's sort of become the PE teacher to the world. And when you look at some of the numbers of people who've been tuning in to his daily broadcasts and how that's gone down all over the world. And of course, he's developed lots of interesting products and content. Lean in 15. These are sharp, snappy ways of being coherent in what he's trying to do. Because obviously he's on a mission to get the world fitter, stronger, healthier and happier. And he's doing that through obviously exercise and through food. And the way he's developing, as I say, lean in 15 products and recipes and so on, it is, again, an extraordinary case study. He's got 4 million Instagram followers. You know, this is a guy, an ordinary guy who started out as a personal coach. It just shows what you can do with energy and ambition and determination. But on the UK, on sort of brand UK, we do have a lot of things going for us. I mean, people really do respect us for our culture, our modern design, you know, exciting place to be, music scene, and all that sort of stuff. But I have to say, we're not always our best friends, are we? You know, occasionally in the UK, we can elevate cynicism to a fine art. You know, I don't know whether anyone watches Rip Off Britain, but, you know, within the first few seconds of the Rip Off Britain programme, you've got sort of 3 ladies basically saying, you know, are you being ripped off? And we found all these people being, you know, and if you go on iPlayer, it says, if you like this programme, you might also like fake Britain. You know, we have turned self-deprecation sometimes into self-flagellation. And I, you know, sometimes think we need to shake that off, as the Taylor Swift, Shake It Off, I think, as the Taylor Swift song really went, because, you know, we have got an awful lot going for us. And the businesses that are born in the UK, I know that we can get a little depressed about some of the political backdrop, some of the challenges that we have, self-inflicted wounds that we have maybe put on ourselves as a nation. But what's interesting is how much great businesses can shape the UK. I mean, obviously, what the government does and foreign policy and all that sort of stuff, that can shape elements of a country, but also businesses shape, you know, the perceptions of a country. And I remember working for British Airways advertising account in, you know, the late 80s and 90s, when actually it became, you know, a symbol and an epitome of many things that were best about the UK. And clearly things have changed rather since then. But I say this, it's rather like Sony shaped the image of Japan when Japan was felt to be a rather low quality, cheap product economy. So there are ways that brands actually can shape the nation from which they come. And in some ways, you know, you want to ignore what's happening sometimes as a political backdrop and just get on and just do business, because that depends on your leadership. And just coming back to leaders, what sort of leaders do we really need? Well, clearly ones that epitomise the best of businesses, as I have said, but also because of this transparency in the digital world, you know, you need to make sure that you are engaging authentically with your people to make sure they love what they do. And I'll come back to that too. And, you know, one of the reasons I wrote the book, Love Your Imposter, was to make sure that actually you could encourage people to be themselves and be human in the way that they lead businesses. And that can be quirks and, you know, flaws and all, because that creates empathy, both with your own people and also with customers outside. And we need businesses of all kinds, shapes and sizes to be led and to be seen to be led by human beings who care about what's happening with other human beings. So we keep on being supported and also having our license to operate. And for those businesses that are truly ambitious, I think we've now got to a stage in the world where we are looking for saviour brands. You know, just look at Patagonia, for example, and I think Unilever at a large scale are doing some very, very good work, which is not just being extractive and minimising our impact on the environment and the world at large from a sustainability point of view, but actually being regenerative socially, environmentally, and as well as economically. And I feel that a lot of business leaders you know, have maybe got the ambition, the appetite, the responsibility, and indeed actually the ability to step forward and create those kinds of companies that are going to make a genuine business to how we operate as a society, as well as to, you know, consumer benefit and so on. And anyway, before I go off into the clouds and tiptoe through the tulips and all those other things, I just leave you with a thought, you know, as a business, whatever shape, size, how clear are you? Because it's never been more important about, you know, clarity of who you are and what you're there to do, coherence of how that shows up inside and outside throughout all of your products and services and across your people, operations, and leadership. What are you doing to step forward and epitomize everything that's good about your business? And how are you really innovating? How are you finding your channels to market? How are you developing and adapting your products and services in line with what's happening out there and the speed and scale of change? So thank you for listening, and I'll shut up.
Rita, thank you. I think you need to look at the comments coming through in the chat function. Everyone is hugely impressed. They found it very, very educational. We couldn't agree with you more around clarity and authentic leadership. It's been hugely insightful, it's hard to do this on Zoom, but we'd normally have a massive round of applause to thank you for taking the time to put so much thought into your talk and to giving us a lot of takeaways to think through as we evolve our businesses. So without much further ado, I'm going to ask people to please put up their hand to be able to ask a question. Quickly say your name and quickly ask the question. And we've got about 20 minutes to do that. There's also going to be a poll in a few seconds, just with 4 questions, which I'd like everyone to participate in. But may I kick off? I think one of the first questions is from David Bailey. David, I'm going to read this out. How would you go about building a tribe for a brand in its early stages of development where money is limited? David, I've said it for you because I can see your question clearly. If anyone raises their hand, we will unmute you and ask you to speak. So that was the first question from David. Rita, do you want to take that, or Lord Bilimoria, would you like to take that question?
I'm happy to kick off with something, although I suspect that you're fed up with the sound of my voice at the moment. So, but all I say on that building a tribe for a brand, one example I didn't mention is a British company, but it's a New Zealand-based company called Xero. And I mention them because they are or were in a very unpromising category, which is accounting software. And I remember being asked to speak at a conference that was about accounting software. And I'll be quite honest, I was thinking, I get all the best gigs, but I show up. This is the most dynamic, exciting, you know, because they'd stitched this brand in from outset, which is they wanted to do beautiful accounting software. They wanted to make small and medium-sized businesses, you know, they wanted to take away the nasty burdens, you know, expenses and, you know, accounts and so on, and make it a nice process. And I just thought, how fantastic. And they developed a tribe. They developed a tribe because it was a product that, you know, small and medium-sized businesses are thinking, this is nice to use. And they used those first customers who loved them as advocates, and they've grown the business. We used to use a funnel. Now I talk about the fan effect. Yeah. So you build a fan effect. ideally, if you can find some famous fans, they will really, provide exponential growth through their contacts and connections and so on. So get people who love you, ideally the ones who've got millions of Instagram or other followers.
Thank you, Rita. So I'm going to go on to ask Dagmar Schmidt. Dagmar, hi. Would you be able to unmute yourself and ask your question? Dagmar, are you there? Yes, she's talking permitted. You can speak now.
Yes.
Hi, Dagmar.
I would like to, hello, everybody. I just would like to know, why is the government focusing on infection and not on the death rates? Because that is what is stopping the economy.
May I ask Lord Bilimoria to respond to that one?
I think we could talk about this at length, but to summarize, where we are today in learning about this virus is phenomenal compared with where we were before. And what we are seeing now is that the testing has ramped up a great deal, which is very good news. And as I said, I'm a great proponent of affordable mass testing. But the infections, and this varies around the world. I mean, you've got a country like India with 1.3 billion people. And if you look at the deaths, the number of total deaths recorded in India as a proportion of population compared with us over here. And then you have the whole debate about immunity and about antibodies and about T-cell immunity. And how are people naturally immune because of the circumstances they're in or the environment they're in. We're learning about all that as we speak. But the good news is that we have been able to flatten the virus curve. There's no question, whichever graph you look at, compared to where we were in April, May, where we are now, whether it's infections or whether it's deaths, sadly, those deaths are now very, very low figures. And the good news, again, is treatments. We're learning also how to treat this now, much, much better than before. We're now finding very affordable treatments. There are the 2 steroid treatments that have now, dexamethasone and another one that was just announced yesterday. They're £5, very, very, very affordable, that can greatly reduce acute cases in hospital, the chances of the person dying. There's a new one that's been a multiple sclerosis drug called interferon beta, which is being trialed in Southampton, where through an inhaler that you would use for asthma, for example, that reduces by 80% the chances of somebody who's serious in hospital from dying. So the treatments are really coming along. And remember, this is less than 6 months that we've been dealing with this and learning about this. And then, of course, the vaccines, those trials are going on around the world, and we're hoping there'll be good news. So if you take a combination of treatments, testing, potential vaccines, capacity of hospitals, the PPE shortage was there before, but now we are, the caring of people in care homes, which we were not, quite frankly. You go back to April, people were being sent from hospitals back to care homes without being tested, which I just think the care homes really need to be protected, the most vulnerable people. And now there's meant to be regular testing at care homes, both of the staff as well as the people who live in the care homes. So if you look ahead, if there is a second wave, we're far, far more capable in dealing with it. But I keep going back to this. If we can have the ability to test the whole country on a regular basis, whether it's twice a week or once a week, we will be able to stay on top of it until a vaccine comes along, when and if that happens.
Thank you very much, Bilimoria. So I'm going to ask Yunus Malik to speak next, and then we'll go across to Ian Reid, followed by Ravi Sabal. So Yunus, would you like to pose your question?
Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for taking the time to talk to all of us. Thank you for arranging this, Shalini. My question is relating to the mixed messages that have been coming out of the government. You know, we are based up here in Scotland. We've got to look at 2 sides of the story. One is what's coming out of Westminster and what's coming out of the Scottish government at the moment. So how would a business be able to balance those 2 things? Because the issue is, if you have got, say, for example, business development managers that travel up and down the country, there is a mixed messaging. For example, in Glasgow the other day, there's now a kind of mini lockdown where you can't visit each other's houses. So if you can't visit each other's houses, how can you go and visit businesses? So could we have some clarity from the leadership to be more coordinated in all regions of UK? So as a business, we've got a very clear and precise kind of guidelines, what should be done in those areas. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Eunice. I think if you didn't mind, Lord Bilimoria, I'll ask you, and maybe Alpesh, if you've got any remarks on this, both of you to comment on that.
Alpesh, do you want to go first this time?
Sure, happy to, Karen. We'll take that messaging back to the Department for International Trade. It's not something, obviously, Shalini and I are directly involved in on the messaging regarding COVID, as you can imagine. However, whenever we get messages, being on the ground, when we get messages from business to take back, we do send it up, and things do happen. You know, it does get fed up. It doesn't get lost in the civil service. I can assure you that, as somebody who runs a business myself, as well as working within government, I can tell you they do follow through and follow up, and they are constantly asking us, what are you hearing from business? Please feed it back to us, and I'll make sure that get across. I can empathize with what you're saying. Like I said, a businessman myself, and I don't need more hurdles put in my way like COVID and lockdowns. And whilst I appreciate things like lockdowns are necessary, the things that make my life easier, I want, and I'll make sure. And I know our team from Department for International Trade, many of them are on this call as well. So from headquarters, and they're full-time working there, and they'll be listening to this as well, and we'll make sure that's passed up to the PermSec and the Minister as well, who are collating the feedback from business.
And just very, very quickly, is that there's no question about it. We have a United Kingdom, but we have devolved administrations. So you've got to have some flexibility there, where the devolved administrations like Scotland and what they do in Wales and what they do in Northern Ireland will, at many times, not be in exact sync. And that is the advantage of having that devolved flexibility, which has many positive aspects to it as well. But at a time like this, you of course do want to work in an as coordinated a way as possible. So for example, if Scotland has suddenly said there's going to be quarantining from Greece and the rest of the UK doesn't, how practical is that? I mean, how can you stop somebody in a country, free movement, going from Scotland down into England? So there are practical implications as well. And with quarantine as well, there's a big outcry from the airport in this country and the airlines, which have been decimated. I mean, they've been down over 90% in this crisis, saying, well, instead of quarantining for 2 weeks, can't we have testing at the airports where, even without the test I'm talking about that is not available, the 20-minute instant saliva test, even with the existing testing technology that exists where you can get results within 90 minutes, you could do testing at airports, and then 5 days later you do another test, and instead of 2 weeks of quarantining, which take people out of the economy for 2 weeks, you have them for 5 days. So there are ways we can get around these solutions. And looking ahead with Brexit happening, we talk about the single market in the whole of the European Union, but we also have our own internal single market. And we want to make sure that that continues in an absolute frictionless way. And that's going through Parliament as we speak, to make sure that we have that free movement, frictionless of business within the United Kingdom going forward.
Thank you, Lord Bilimoria. I'm going to ask Ian Reid now, if he wouldn't mind to just ask his question. Ian, you just need to unmute, and hopefully you can ask your question.
That's it. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, that's great. So this is, first up, thanks to all the panelists. This is another branding question at the country level, but it's not necessarily directed just at Rita. This isn't an example of British cynicism, I want to believe. But in terms of branding, we think about examples of Brits abroad. We think about examples of false starts like the Cool Britannia initiative, and I use the word initiative loosely there. And we talk about some of our events that have dented our international reputation. What would each of the panelists, given a magic wand, place as top of their agenda for improving Britain's brand image?
Okay, great question. Rita, would you like to respond to this one first, and then I'll go across to everybody else and then give my view.
When we talk about improving brand image, it just reminds me sometimes of the discussion I have with people about the difference between reputation and brand. And the thing about image and the thing about reputation is that it's an outcome. It's an outcome in people's minds and perceptions. And the thing is, you don't own your reputation, but you do own your brand. And if, reputation is reality with a lag effect. And what the brand does is organise the reality in a way that, gets hopefully the right outcomes. And so therefore, just thinking about that organising the reality, the way that, Britain as a brand will improve on a world stage is if people do stuff that is going to, epitomise where we want to be in the world. And we have had, without a doubt, a lot of self-inflicted wounds. The image of the UK has been in decline. We're still up there. I mean, you tend to find, Canada, Germany, France, in terms of the sort of nation brands index, but we are still up there, but we are edging down because of some of the things that have happened over the last few years. And we've also had stability. I mean, Britain has been, it's been seen to be stable and so on. And many of the things that have happened over the last few years have tended to dent that a little bit. However, in comparison with so many other countries, we are a great place to do business. And also, we are reliable friends. When you look at the image of Britain, people would quite like to be friends with people from Britain. They would trust friends from Britain and so on. So we do have a lot of things going for us, but we now need to do stuff in the world. We need successful businesses. We need to make sure we're highlighting the successful businesses that we're both creating, and also that we're welcoming people to come and create in the UK. And the mixed messages, of course, have been around, there have been some mixed messages around governance and immigration and whether or not people are welcome here and so on. The welcome attribute has gone down. So there are clearly many things that the governmental backdrop can help with. So there are a lot of things that businesses themselves can do that start to change perception rather than the way I described. And I was talking about the creative businesses, music businesses, entertainment businesses, the airline business that, we also changed the UK. So, yeah, I mean, obviously it's good to sort of keep pressure up on the government to do stuff that's going to help business and want to support business. And frankly, why wouldn't they want to? Because actually they need an awful lot of money from businesses over the next few years to recover. But also we ourselves as business leaders need to get out there and do business. There are so many tools. By the way, one of the things I didn't mention is on the leadership and innovation front, there are so many free tools that you can use these days. I mean, Google has got a smorgasbord of tools, Market Finder, where you can go and see which other markets might have some common characteristics to the one that you're successful in already. There are so many tools, and clearly many of these platforms, they're presenting the tools because they'd like to sell you some of the things that they do, but you just have to apply your adjustment to that. So many, many tools that will be of help in growing and getting out there. And frankly, action is the very best way. I find action is the best therapy on some of these things. Moaning and groaning can only take us so far.
So I just want to, this is to me, I love this question about, the image of Britain and brand Britain. Well, I mean, just let's step back. Yes, what Rita mentioned about immigration, I've been very open about this. Under the previous Prime Minister, Theresa May, and when she was Home Secretary, we had a hostile immigration image. That was a reality. You've seen how that's changed straight away in the last year. We've got the 2-year post-graduation work visa that's been brought back for international students. It's changed straight away. One of the greatest strengths of Britain is why we've been such a successful economy with no natural resources, a little bit of diminishing North Sea oil and gas. Basically, we've got the most phenomenal country, 1% of the world's population, that is still, as Alpesh said, the 6th largest economy in the world. And why? It is because we have phenomenal capability. Just today, we've had one of the university rankings, it's World University Rankings, the Times, has come out today Which university is number 1 in the world? Oxford. Which is another university, British university in the top 10? Cambridge. Last week, another ranking, QS ranking came out. Oxford and Cambridge were number 3 and 6. Cambridge was 3, Oxford was 6. Top 10, always top 5 usually, Oxford and Cambridge, often number 1 in the world. Which university has won more Nobel Prizes in the world than any other university? Not MIT, not Harvard, not Stanford, not Yale. It's Cambridge University with 100 Nobel Prizes. So we have phenomenal capability. But on the other hand, as Alpesh said, and Rita may have said, that Apple has now got a higher market cap than the whole of the FTSE 100 combined. So yes, we've got a lot to do. Yes, America's got that scale, and particularly in the big tech companies. But look at our excellence with the City of London. It is still always the one or two top 2 financial centers in the world. Inward investment, we're still one of the top 2 in the world. And having left the European Union, the challenge now is we've got to maintain our reputation and our brand as a global power. We're not a superpower, we're a global power. And we have great hard power. Our defense forces may be small in numbers, but they are highly respected as some of the best defense forces in the world, whether it's the Army, the Navy, or the Air Force. So our hard power capabilities, we have our nuclear deterrent 24 hours, 365 days a year, which gives us huge hard power. And our soft power is immeasurable. I mean, Rita mentioned about music, whether it's classical, rock, ballet, you name it, we're best in the world. Whether they're museums, whether it's our creative industries, our advertising, lawyers, accountants, aerospace, beer, advanced manufacturing, you name it, we've got the best capabilities in the world. I think we've got to be proud of that with Britain and have much more pride in our brand. And the really important point that Rita mentioned is we've always been respected historically because the strength of these historic institutions that are centuries old, that you can't just develop overnight, they give us great depth of trust. And the way one of my Harvard Business School professors described trust, Francis Fry, said to have trust, to gain trust, you've got to be authentic, you've got to have the logic, you've got to have that capability, and you've got to be empathetic. And I think Britain has always engendered trust from other people. Where do you go to get the best trial in the world, for the fairest courts in the world, and the highest quality justice in the world? It's right here in the UK. And we've got those values that are very strong that we should never take for granted.
Thank you very much, Bilimoria. Alpesh, do you want to make a comment on that, or shall we move on to the next
Yeah,
thing?
I'll just make a very brief comment. Ian, it's you're the brand ambassador for the United Kingdom. And what I mean by that is it's all the entrepreneurs who are here who are going to get the messaging out. That we live in an Instagram age where sometimes brand is misperceived as all talk and no substance. Actually, the substance which Karan speaks about, which Rita's spoken about, we often speak softly because we're British. It's the British way of doing things. And we need to speak a little bit more loudly about how successful we are, because there is genuine substance there. The reason the companies from overseas want to come here, the number one reason they give me is ease of doing business. We don't even notice that in the UK. And you might say, are you kidding me? My internet went down and the tubes and all the rest of it. We are easily one of the best places to do business in the world, let alone market size and all the rest of it. So I'd say we need you guys, the entrepreneurs, to speak more loudly, more patriotically. That's not to say you're not critical of government policies, but actually it's going to be us, the entrepreneurs, who are going to solve the problems. We're the ones who are going to brand Britain. Nobody's going to do it for us.
Thank you, Alpesh. Again, very, very helpful insights from the panel. Thank you very much for that. I would add as well, what Lord Bilimoria was saying is to talk about confidence. We need to have the rest of the world bringing back their confidence in us, and this will be done through, as Alpesh is saying, through the SMEs. I'm going to ask, we're going to go on to Ravi Sibal and then Richard Harris. We've got roughly 5 minutes, and then I'm going to ask Lord Bilimoria to do the closing, but I just want to see if we can run the quick poll. I'm asking my tech team if it's possible to make it live quickly, and there's multiple choice questions, 4 of them, and literally I want to cover that. So would you take a minute to read these questions? I'll read them out quickly. I'm interested in E2E because the events are very informative and educational. I make valuable high quality connections, or I make use of the membership benefits. We're just trying to get an insight on why we're helpful to you. So quick response on that one, please. The hosts and panelists can't vote, I'm afraid. So it's just the audience, I'm sorry. Second one, which of the below services would you need the most? Business service consultations, lawyers, accountants, consultants, receiving flexi mentoring, finding a non-exec director, meeting like-minded people. Are you raising money, or would you like to offer your services to our members? Question number 2. Question number 3, which of the following services would benefit you? Real-time private market data, sales intelligence software, digital marketing support. These are our membership benefits, by the way, lots of them. So we're trying to work out which more you need. Web hosting, customer relationship management software, virtual offices. For those of you that don't know, we are the only company in the UK that can provide a 50% 3 months free discount on anything with IWG, their virtual offices, their physical offices. So if you are looking for flexi working and virtual offices, please talk to us about that. So IWG was formerly Regis. And this is my opportunity to congratulate Lord Bilimoria. I'm very, very proud to be working with him, and I was extremely proud and emotional when he became president of the CBI. So that has happened recently, and so we're really excited for you, Lord Bilimoria, and we want to work with you to help build the CBI's small business division, and we're encouraging our members to become members of the CBI. As a member of E2E, you get 6 months free, which Lord Bilimoria has kindly facilitated to the CBI. So if you're not a member of E2E, become our member, and simultaneously in the effort of collaboration that will happen. So are you interested in the CBI? If yes, please put yes there, and if no, put no there. So I'd be grateful if everyone could just complete that poll very quickly. And whilst you're doing that, I'm going to ask Ravi to please ask his question if he's available. Ravi, are you there?
Oh, I've just been muted. I've been unmuted.
Great.
Can you hear me?
You quickly ask, and then I'm afraid we're going to have to do a closing in 2
No
minutes.
problem. I'll be as quick as I can. So thank you all for taking the time this morning. It was really useful to hear everything you said. A couple of things that are on my mind. So I think the Chancellor has done a fantastic job in supporting the country through COVID. What does worry me though is a couple of things that are coming out in the press around changes to capital gains tax, changes to entrepreneurs tax relief, and how that will impact the innovation and enterprise community. I'd love to get your thoughts on that. Second part of the question is around IR35 and the impact that will have on flexible resources. So my personal belief is that is a massive part of the growth economy, and we need people to be able to work flexibly and not be penalised in the way that IR35 is looking to do. So thoughts, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Rita, would you like to kick off, or Lord Bilimoria? Happy. Go, Rita.
I think it's one for Karen, if that's okay. It's not really my area of specialism, but I'm happy to come back.
I mean, we're about to do the closing. So Rita, any last minute, anything from you and Alpesh before I just make the closing remarks? We might have finished at 10:30.
I'd just say to Ravi, we'll pass that message back.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, I many closer apart from say thank you very much for having me. And one of the questions actually that came up on the chat was, is brand as relevant for early stage startups? I would say it's even more relevant. You need to stitch it in from outset, and that's what gets you investment, and also that's what starts you off in the right way. So that's the only thing I might add. It's always that's always the answer. Anyway, thank you for having me, and I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Ravi.
Thank you, Rita. Shall I say some final words now? Alpesh, great as always. Thank you for what you're doing for entrepreneurship and for Britain. And Rita, always a joy, and I learn so much from you every time as well. So thank you so much. I think we've all learned a huge amount from what you've said. And Shalini, thanks for championing entrepreneurship the way you do. And by the way, you're going to announce the results of the poll at the end? Or do you want an answer now?
I'm not sure if I can. Let me see. I might have to email them to everyone. Are we able to announce the results of the poll? I'm asking the tech team.
Ah, here we are.
Okay.
So
Karen, would you like to just go through that, or shall I run? So
you run through.
Yeah, events, I think, is number one for E2E. In terms of our services, it looks like meeting like-minded people takes the win there. In terms of which services would you benefit, real-time private market data is key. Virtual offices has got a very high mark there. And are you interested in the CBI? Yes, we're at, I think, 59% of our audience has said yes. So I'm glad to see that, Lord Bilimoria. But we've got work to do as well to get it to 100%.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And those of you who, by the way, who did say yes, please go on to the CBI online and take advantage of this free membership that is available at this time of crisis with no obligation thereafter. And it's a privilege for me to be president there. And thank you for your kind words, Charlene, and to all of you. It is, you know, people think CBI is only for big business. Yes, we have the FTSE 100, FTSE 250 members, but we also represent almost 200,000 businesses employing 7 million people around the country. So it's the biggest business organization by far in the country. And we're there to champion British business within Britain and around the world and with government. And Alpesh, what, you know, so many things you spoke about, these bounce back loans, by the way. I don't know how many of you have taken them. It's one of the things from the beginning that I fought for. And I said to the government, it's only going to work if you guarantee 100%. They said, no, 80%. They did the 80% loans. They've worked a bit. And many businesses have benefited from the rest. So they really wanted to work. You've got to have 100% guaranteed loans. They listened, and we've got the bounce back loans. Over 1 million of those have gone out. 1 million businesses have been able to get those loans. It's saved so many businesses in our country. And I'm so grateful to the government for listening to that. And of course, we've spoken about Apple. It's come up time and again. And IP, Rita, Alpesh spoke about your intellectual property. And I always say with Cobra beer, it's a fabulous beer. I'm sorry to boast, one of the best beers in the world with 121 gold medals. But our most valuable asset is the Cobra beer brand. There's no question about it. That is our most valuable asset. You know, we spoke about universities, inward investment, entrepreneurship, innovation, forward-looking tech. Alpesh said all these things about the UK. And the skills. I think the other thing is lifelong learning. I really think that we've got to be investing in lifelong learning. I was a member of the Adult Education Centenary Commission that reported in November, well before this crisis. And now we're realizing in this crisis even more how important it is to be able to engage in skilling. We should in fact have individuals having a learning account, so to say, where you can spend on lifelong learning, because we won't have one career for our lives any longer. People will keep changing career as the world keeps moving so quickly. And we're reminded time and again of this technology, of these big companies we've been speaking about. How many of them even existed 3 decades ago, let alone 2 decades ago, to where they are today? And Rita, the Love Your Imposter, we can't wait to read your book. And you spoke about the opportunities in this time. I mean, it is, you know, as Camus, the famous philosopher, said, you know, plagues are evil things, but it is a time of plague that people rise above themselves. And this is the time to actually, for us to, the true test of leadership, as I said, is a time of adversity. And we've spoken so much throughout about the strengths of Britain, about how many strengths we have in so many different sectors. The worry of a no-deal Brexit. I mean, this is something that we have to now face going ahead. I do hope we will come up with a deal. Every business I speak to says they do not want a no deal. We all want a deal. European business, I speak to my colleagues in Europe, they want a deal. And we hope, and I'll do my best to help the government to get a deal with Europe, which is, whatever we may say, almost 50% of our trading. In the United States, we have a great relationship. Countries like India, we have a phenomenal relationship. And technology, we've spoken about that at length. Satya Nadella, Microsoft CEO, said during the midst of the crisis, and we mentioned about Zoom, it's taken 2 months to adopt what would normally take in many, many years. And Rita gave the figures from December to today, just one platform, Zoom, how it's rocketed. Rita spoke about customers loving what you do, telling people that word of mouth, people first, and then a strong brand being the most important thing. Strong brand, strong team, balance sheet, Warren Buffett, you mentioned, and then the clarity, coherence, and leadership. And this entrepreneurial leadership is playing to win. The other form of leadership is playing not to lose. we're entrepreneurs. It's playing to win. And love what you do. And I think that was so important. Being adaptable. I have this mantra about adapt or die. We didn't touch too much on the green side of things. And I think it's very important that when we build back, we also build back from an environmental point of view. For example, we just had the Heat Commission report from the CBI. We've got COP26 coming up next year. This is one of the areas where Britain is a leader in the world in green technology. For example, wind farms, we're the best in the world by far. Now it comes to the Heat Commission and heat, which makes up such a big proportion of carbon emissions and energy consumption. We can lead from the front over there. And then again, Rita gave examples. So we're almost out of time now, but we've got to shout from the rooftops about our country, about brand Britain. And I think it's been very positive overall. So Shalini, thank you again for everything. And I finish with a quote that I love. Mahatma Gandhi, live as if you're going to die tomorrow. Learn as if you're going to live forever. And we've all learned a great deal. So thank you very much.
Huge thank you. Can I say huge thank you to each of you? It's been an amazing start to the day, and so much we've learned from it. And I can't thank you enough on behalf of our members. That you can see the commentary coming in through the chat. Guys, the next event is on the 9th of September with Nicola Elliott. She founded NEOM. It's a 20 million turnover company, followed by Jim McCall, Simon Woodruff, Damien Gabriel, and so on. There's at least one thing a week. Have a look on our website and join us if you're free. And thank you. We are on a mission to build our global brands with E2E, and we really appreciate your support. So thanks, everybody, and have a good day. Speak to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Shalini. Thank you so much. Thank you, E2E.
Thank you, Shalini. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Karen, Rita. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.